Hey, I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood, and today I wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about something that keeps popping up, both with our customers and from some contractors who will ask the same thing about putting on subsequent coats, coats after we've already stained or sealed a deck or exterior wood. And should we put on another coat? A lot of times a homeowner or even just people in general will say, oh yeah, I thought it would look a little darker. Can you just put on another coat? I don't know, can we put on another coat? Should we put on another coat? They're the things I want to get into in this video, and then demonstrate as well what we're doing. If you look on the back of most stain cans, sealers and stain cans for exterior wood, you're going to see something that says wet on wet application. And what that means is the first coat can't completely dry. If it does, then stains and sealers can repel them, will repel themselves. So basically when you're done, you're done. Now a solid stain would be different because that's more like a paint. And that's where this notion to just put on another coat comes from. We're not painting. This is something completely different. So when you talk about these sealers and stains, a lot of times we're talking about something that you put it down and it's done. You don't put a clear coat over top. That's in another video as well. You don't just keep adding coats. What happens is it can't get into the wood. Once you have a barrier, then you have a problem. So if we have oils and we're using an oil-based product and we put down a coat and it dries, it's gotten into the wood, it's grabbed it. If the oil can't go in and grab that wood, when we put on a subsequent coat, it's going to stay on top. It probably won't dry correctly. It'll probably stay sticky. Acetone would be one of your ways to go try to take the stickiness off of it, but you probably want to get to it, depending on what kind of oil, within a week. Otherwise, it'll cure and then you're just kind of out of luck. You'd have to strip it off and start over. Even with water-based products, the same thing. Once they're down and they're done, they repel themselves. So when you say to when someone says to you, hey, can't you just put on another coat? No, when you're done, you're done. That's usually just the way it is. And stains and sealers will repel themselves, which is what we're going to demonstrate here. We'll talk about some other coats and so forth like that. So let's get into that in just a minute. We'll work that on the training deck here and show you some good examples. And even like a little time lapse. So we'll put it down, we'll wait 30 minutes, because that's usually what you have is 30 minutes in between coats, then a little more, and you'll see how it repels and so forth. So let's take a look at it. So we put a little meat on the bones, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just words. All right, here we are back on the deck, and what we're going to do is we're going to take an area where we've recently cleaned from a demonstration we did. We actually put some stripper on here and stripped this off. So there's a little bit of tone and color here, and we're going to go ahead and put some stain on there. And this is just a sealer, and we'll just let that dry, and then we're going to try to put another coat on it. Well, what we mean by wet on wet application means we're going to put this on, and we would do the whole deck like this. So what we do is, say we were in the back, we would do 3 or 4 boards, and we go all the way across, keeping a wet edge. That way you never have lap marks. So we go from left to right or right to left, do as far as your arm can reach, or if you're using a brush of some sort on a pole, same thing, nothing changes. You just do 3 or 4 boards at a time. And then by the time you get to the other end, you would come back and start over and just back brush, wet on wet application, another coat. That way it doesn't completely dry, you don't have any lap marks, and then you go to the next 4 boards, and you continue that until you come off to the end of the deck or wherever the steps, wherever you're working towards. But that's what you want to do. And a wet on wet application can mean different things at different times of the year because of temperature and so forth. So if we do wet on wet application and it's summertime and it's warm out, we're right now September 1st in New Jersey, and it's still pretty warm, obviously. So you have 10 minutes to 30 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, depending on the product, could be too long. especially on a warm day, a warm surface with the sun out, that kind of stuff. And there's times where it's just too hot to do it because you could have flash drying. Flash drying is when this surface is so hot, you put on the product and it instantly dries and doesn't have a chance to get into the wood, or the characteristics that make up that product are not allowed to work the way they should. So anyway, we've put on a coat and it's kind of soaked in a little bit there. And what we're going to do is just go back over with another coat, and that's what we call wet on wet. Okay, now I always tell, and this is a good thing if you're a contractor, you have people working for you, I'll make this a little bigger while I'm talking, is if you do a wet on wet application and you're back brushing, you're basically going over it twice. So when you have missed spots or missed areas, that means somebody probably didn't do their job the way they should have. Okay, that means they tried to put on one coat, one heavy coat. Some people will talk about flood coats. I'm not one of those people that's a big fan of flood coats. I believe you should put the stain or sealer into the wood, and it should take what it needs. And then when you do your wet on wet application, you work it until it's even and it takes what it should. When people try to put on a flood coat, they're usually trying to get done quicker and so forth. But I'm not a fan of that, especially when it comes to things like knots in wood, because they're a little more dense. So if you do a flood coat, I guarantee you when you go back and look at it, the knots are going to look different, and some people don't like that. This gives it a little bit more consistency, especially with knotty wood, when you do that wet on wet application and you wait the time in between. So what happens, we've done kind of a wet on wet, because I did make it a little bit more, but we're going to come back and take a look at this. Okay, and in the meantime, I am going to show you an area where we did before and what it should look like if you don't do, like if you're, this is wet on wet the first time, but if you come back and you were to do a maintenance coat, what happens is maintenance is okay because you do a cleaning in between. So you're kind of prepping the surface, you're taking a little bit more off the surface, and then you can reapply a stain or sealer afterwards. But if you were to switch colors, switch stains, switch anything, you probably want to take the old stuff off, or if it has been a long time to prep the wood. But even if you do maintenance, you have to make sure that the like product is going to marry to the first coat or the coats that are already still there. And to do that, you have to do some prep and you have to do some cleaning and so forth, which again, we've done this. I'm going to slide over a little bit and show you an area and just go over that, and then we'll come back and we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to try to put another coat on and see how that repels, and why just putting on another coat doesn't always work. All right, Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood, back here, and this is an area where we put some of our Deck Restoration Plus stain, our Beach Haven Black, on the wood, again, during a demo. And what we did was, we just did a light cleaning. So when we were cleaning here, doesn't look like it's because it's grayed so far, grayed so much, but this has been cleaned. So it's kind of worn and kind of been cleaned. So what happens is, if we had not cleaned and it was rich like this, it wouldn't take as well because there's a barrier. Same thing here, you can see where it's weathered. It's been cleaned. Now you can put on another coat. If I didn't clean it and do some work on the surface at first, I probably wouldn't be able to, because it wouldn't adhere as well. It's still going to have that repellency characteristic going on. So what we do is we want to make sure that it's going to take the next coat. And you can see that it's clean, and it's also weathered some. So what we do is we take some stain and we would be able to just go right back over it. As you can see, it's not repelling. If this was repelling, we would stop, because that means it's not prepped enough, or maybe it wasn't cleaned. Maybe we just tried to go over it. If it was, and we'll go back to the other example that I'm showing over here, if it was brand new stain and we tried to go back over it, it would repel. So that's what you have to make sure, that it's going to take in the wood. Okay? And then you stain whatever is going to go into the wood, whatever it'll take. You don't want to leave puddles or anything like that. Nothing should be that heavy where it's puddled up. And you work your brush all the way out, And you always keep your brush on the wood. When you lift it up, that's where you leave brush marks. So just use it until it uses all the stain up. Go back in, and then you just keep going, okay? So this is what we want to do when we're just prepping the wood. You want it to take it. If it repels, you didn't clean it well enough, or you didn't prep it well enough to take that subsequent coat or the next coat. Now this is on weathered wood. Now let's go back to the one we just stained and see how that's going to take another coat after that's dried for a little bit, and why you only have about 30 minutes or less for most products before you can't put on another coat. All right, so come back here and wood's dry. Feel a little bit of very light, maybe tackiness, but not much. I mean, it's pretty dry. Nothing's coming off on my hands, so we know it's pretty dry. So let's take a look and see what happens when we go to put another coat on. Now, this is already sealed. It's covered. You don't have to worry about anything getting through it. Now, what's going to happen when we put just another coat on? What happens is it's going to sit right on the top. And you can brush it in and so forth. But all that's doing, if you can see it, is sitting right on the top of the wood. And then as I'm doing it, you can see it's not going anywhere. It's like puddling up. So there's nowhere for it to go. It's not getting into the wood. So this is where people make a mistake and they have a bad idea. So this will never really dry sitting on the top. It'll stay tacky. This is an oil base and it just stays tacky. And it can't get into the wood. Now, whether this is a water base or an oil base, what happens is because it's sitting on top of the dry, and you can see some of it how it's beating, it's not taking it into the wood. So what happens is this will sit on top and actually peel as well when it does dry. So it'll create an even bigger mess. So then when you come back to fix it and you have to strip it, it's almost like you're taking off two coats or two applications, separate applications, because you got that stuff that's on the top that didn't get in right, and then you got to get what's underneath. So by putting on an extra coat, this is where you make the mistake. So, I mean, in some areas it'll take it, and in some areas it's not taking it. And you have to really brush this out just so it won't be sticky on me. You can feel it even different on the brush. I was before was just taking it in. Now you're just smearing it across. So that is why we do not put just put on another coat. Make it look darker. I thought it'd be richer. You really get one shot at this when you're doing outdoor deck sealers and stains, because you just don't have the opportunity to come back and do it again. It's not a paint. It's a completely different product. It's a different characteristic. It's a different school of thought. And usually when you come out and you do that, you're making mistakes. Now, if we were to do touch-ups could be done with like a small chip brush or smaller brush. Also could be done with lamb's wool, where you're wiping an area or just putting in a little bit, that kind of thing for a spot. I can understand that. But by putting on a full new coat, you're actually making a mistake. And that's what the purpose of this video is for. Now, one other thing I'm going to do is when this dries, again, I'm going to come back out here with water and put some water on here, and we'll see that repel. So if it's going to repel the water, it's also repelling anything that's going to go on top of it. So we can see everything from beginning to end of why we're not putting on another coat, or just put on another coat after we've already applied it and it's dried. All right, be right back to finish up the video. All right, Everett Abrams, Wizard of Wood, back to finish this up. And we've let this dry a little bit. Not as long as we did before we tried the other coat. So let's see what happens when we go to put some water on here. Just gonna pour a little on. I got the video up close. Wow, you can see it's beating. See how it's beating very close here. I'm gonna pull the camera off so we can get a little closer here. And this is literally beating. It's not taking it into the wood. And when it doesn't take it into the wood, because stains and sealers already have that property in it that's going to repel the anything, the other coat, the next coating, the water, everything. So if it's already got a barrier and it's repelling it, how is it going to take just another coat? And that's what happens with exterior stains and sealers. Once they're sealed, once they're done, you're done. Do not put another coat on, because you're liable to mess things up even worse. You should explain this to the customer ahead of time about wet on wet applications and being done, because they're going to assume a lot of times, and even anybody watching this video, that just painting, you just put another coat on. You could do that with exterior sealers and stains. Not necessarily the case. See it repelling. I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video and now know why you just sometimes don't put on another coat. Thanks for watching.